Salutations! Final Fantasy XIV is a pretty diverse game. You see everything from cat girls to Roegadyn to cat girls to bunny boys to cat girls. But if you peel back the curtain a bit, there's more to character creation than meets the eye. The races are just canvases of different sizes, and people paint their personal tastes, for better or worse, with every slider and box they touch. Today, I am going to egregiously psychoanalyze some of these choices and make you feel bad, or maybe sometimes good, about them. But let's start with some general racism. Hyur, contrary to lore, are pretty rare. Male Hyur, specifically Midlanders, have, in my experience, horseshoed from being such weebs that more obvious options like Catgirl are beneath them. You are very special and unique, according to your moms, so you play tank and insist on being the MT in alliance raids. You dabbled in samurai, but every other class is a mystery to you, as change is a scary concept. You insist you do not look like Ardbert, but deep down, you know you lie. Female Hyur Midlanders enjoy playing cute girls, but find the other options too outlandish. Played by both men and women, but kinda rare to see. They will never use anything but Phase 5. Highlander players in general are just exaggerated Midlanders. The 4 Highlander males that exist played male human paladins in World of Warcraft and still take personal offense when 14 is called a weeb game, while female Highlanders are probably the most mod-addicted community in the game and, well, yeah. Elezen still don't exist. This community meme holds eternally true, and every time this comes up and some lone voice insists, "But I play Elezen," I must remind them, you won't for long. If, however, you do exist, you're probably a role player who's a little too into the Ishgardian aesthetic. You are not a Duskwight, because nobody is a Duskwight. Lalafell. There are only 2 types of Lalafells, and things like gender or clan don't matter. You are either a high-end raider and unusually incredible at the game, or you are the lowest scum known to humanity, incapable of clearing Sastasha. There is no such thing as a mediocre Lalafell. Male Miqo'te are played exclusively by women and gay men. If the former, they will have a very strong sense of fashion, but if the latter, expect only cheetah print speedos or pink maid outfits. Most will use Phase 1, despite it kinda making them look 14 years old, whereas a bit of work with Phase 4 actually makes a good-looking catboy. You never see it though. Female Miqo'te are 98% of the game's player base and probably the one you want to hear about most. There is nothing wrong with playing Catgirl, cope. Roegadyn males are born in a full suit of plate and cannot play anything other than tank, usually warrior or paladin. They will also usually raid lead, and have tank-specific macros for countdowns and ready checks. If they have washed out of raiding, they will wear casual or joke outfits and AFK and Limsa all day. Strong possibility of being gay IRL. Femros, however, are almost universally played by straight men who rarely bother customizing beyond this slider. The Venn diagram between these players and female Highlanders is a circle. Male Aura are not aware that any job except Dark Knight exists, and they will only ever play Zayla. May or may not be Mordekaiser mains too. Female Aura are, like Catgirls, 85% men, and usually played Catgirl or Elezen before making the transition to Lizard Girl. Very often into glamour and housing, regardless of orientation or gender behind the keyboard. Hrothgar is where the catboys go to graduate. Once a sprout catboy white mage is sick of dying to every mechanic, he will go on a training arc to become an utterly cracked Hrothgar scholar. These cat men are usually very good at the game, but they only play healers. It is also the only race that currently has no opposite sex counterpart, but the player-based demographic for Catmen leads me to think they aren't very bothered by this. Viera, otherwise known as Miqo'te 2.0, share pretty much all the same traits. The men are usually played by women, and the women by men. There is no such thing as a permanent Viera player, however, as the lack of hats eventually wears them down and they return to Miqo'te with their 6th Fantasia that year. As I said earlier, these races are merely the building blocks of deeper, more meaningful choices. Let's address some of the character options that I judge and notice most often. When it comes to the height slider, there's a very simple formula. If you've cranked it all the way up here, you're short in real life, but if you're somewhere down here, you're tall in real life. Next up, I would like to present the zoom test. Upon inspecting someone, if you scroll in on their character's face, you will be able to basically soul read them. Anyone with their life put together, and thus capable of standing inside a group stack or out of an AoE puddle, will usually have some sense of cohesion going on in their design choices here. Even if they have a lot of facial markings, the colors aren't jarring and there's a real creative logic to it. On the other hand, if you zoom in on someone and they look like the Joker, expect chaos incarnate. These people will flood shout chat with their questionable takes and are completely lost in the ether mentally. Speaking of gameplay tells, let's talk about the Royal Eye of Raiding. 14 has an option for heterochromia, or odd-colored eyes, but I only ever see 2 types of people with it, and they occupy these 2 positions on the bell curve. This has led me to the breakthrough research theory of the Royal Eye of Raiding. That is, that the odd-colored eye either allows you to see mechanics with a 6th sense, or completely and utterly blinds you to them. Hair is another big one, as styles and colors tend to be pretty personality driven. White hair of any type, for instance, is a surefire sign someone is fully immersed in the scions of the Seventh Dawn. They love the story and are ready to make it everyone else's problem. I have never seen someone wear the Jirabanian plate style that wasn't deep into modding, RP, glamour, and or housing. This is, for some reason, a lightning rod hairstyle for the fashion gamers. Likewise, very vibrant contrasts, especially with the hunter for hire hair for some reason, usually point toward a casual content enthusiast. You won't step foot into a savage raid unless it's 2 XPEX old and only then for glam farming, but you have an unusually large stash of MGP and are very interested in getting your adventure plate just right. If you have the blush face paint on, you're a male wife role player, a healer only player, or perhaps a crafting main, and on the weekends you can be found on Balmung at any of the 8,000 cat cafes. The similar but strikingly different Naruto cat whiskers face paint, however, implies almost the exact opposite. While you will occasionally see new players or non-raiders with it, I live in special terror of the kitty whisker Lalafell, who tend to be the most mechanically gifted players I have ever seen. Bonus points if they are, in fact, ninjas. A bandage on the face, however, simply means you are a weeb. If you've related to none of this, no refunds. You are simply constructed curiously. However, your subscription is integral to your future happiness, so fork it over, bud.